And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about some things that go along with this rotation that Heidi and Max, our two residents, are doing. And usually I would be taking them to South Dakota, and it would have been in June, and that didn't happen. And then we were going to take them to Alaska in December. Well, that didn't happen. so so we're making do. And so I just wanted to spend a little time on ceremonial healing. And this is my disclosure. Someday I might get a royalty check if you buy my book, but I'm not holding my breath. So, but I do write about the power of ceremony and the power of community, and I think that's really what uh, Alaska presented to us in the last couple days is the power of community and the importance of connecting with each other and also with the spiritual dimension. All of that seems really important. And so, oops, I'm going in the wrong direction. So I just wanted to do the usual sort of indigenous style introduction for myself. This is where I was born, Mount Vernon, Kentucky. Actually, I was born up the road in Breer, Kentucky, and grew up in Mount Vernon. This is my lake. It's a beautiful lake, Cumberland Lake. This is the Cumberland River where I thought I was going fishing, but instead my grandfather taught me how to pray, and he was tricky. And we were connected to the Cherokee Reserve in western North Carolina, so we would occasionally go there. And I can remember the pageant that was put on about the Trail of Tears. I think it's called Unto These Hills. But I remember seeing that as a kid and being deeply moved by that. And there's some great murals about Cherokee life and culture from the museum there. And I like to show this picture because it shows that not everyone wore plains headdresses. They didn't in New England either, but I just thought this is kind of a cool picture of three Cherokee dudes from 1730, showing how they were dressing and what they were, how they wore their hair and things like that. This is that same river, and it's Cherokee stick fishing. So impaling a fish with a stick. I don't think I'm good enough to do that. And we've all been talking about our historical trauma, and so of course, for my mother's people, the historical trauma was the Trail of Tears and Death of 1838 and the march to Oklahoma. And this is the route that the march followed. And you can see how um, how Cherokee people escaped the march and settled all through Kentucky and Missouri and Arkansas before being before arriving to Oklahoma. And this was the guy who was the chief of the Cherokee Nation during the Trail of Tears. And just to show you how the blood quantum didn't exist in those days, by today's standards he would be considered 7/8 Scottish, but by the standards of 1838 he was 100% Cherokee because we were a nation and not a race. And just a quick drawing of the green corn ceremony, of a summer smokehouse, of a winter house, stone house, and and this I like this picture because this guy is out of context, as you can see from the previous. So this was done for the tourists. This is a Cherokee bluegrass band, of which my grandfather, was really fond. Um, so now a short introduction to my father. My father came from Wounded Knee, South Dakota, Pine Ridge Agency, and He and my mother met in Kentucky when he was sent there by the Air Force, and they met at a dance sponsored by the USO. And with apologies to my mother, who's watching from somewhere in spirit world, they apparently did more than just dance. Because here I am. So, well, he must have been a handsome Lakota dude. That's all I can say. So, this is the church in the town where my father grew up, and this is what it looks like around the town. Um, this is lunch. Um, this is the Badlands just down the road, which is incredibly beautiful. And this is looking to the west, and you can see why they call it the Black Hills, because it looks pretty dark in the west. And of course, the big historical trauma in for my father's people was the massacre at Wounded Knee. I think it was 393 people were killed, and and let's see, we want to admit, and we'll get to more to that in a moment. But I just wanted to show a jingle dance, what it because it's kind of fun, and so this is the land around Wounded Knee. This is how you make sure that lunch stays fresh. Um, and this is the prairie, and this is the memorial to Wounded Knee. And it's really funny, but I don't know if anyone else can see this, but to me it looks like a woman. Like this is her head, and if you look at it from certain angles and certain
Mm-hmm.
lighting, she's got a face and eyes and arms folded and a belly button, and I don't know. It just looks like that there's a spirit in that stone to me. Um, and um, so these are some pictures from around the time of the massacre, just to show what it was like. This is one of my favorite named people. This guy's name was Young Man Afraid of His Horses. I wonder how he got that name. So, um, anyway, Pine Ridge Agency, January 17th, 1891. And here's some guys on horseback, and this is the parade ground where the massacre took place.
Oh,
And here's some scenes after the massacre of people frozen in the snow.
oh,
Just really sad stuff. And this is that same hospital that I showed you. It was made turned into a makeshift hospital for the survivors. And this was burial in a mass grave uh, of the dead. And just kind of sad. And here's the dead being all piled up to get thrown in the mass
oh,
grave.
oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess this guy got to walk away from it all. And there's the church up on the hill, which is still there as I showed you. This is the traditional healer. And so anyway, that leads us to my telling you about my hero, Charles Eastman, or Ohiesa. And Charles was the doctor at Wounded Knee during the time of the massacre. And prior to the massacre, he believed in assimilation. So uh, Charles had been raised traditionally for his first 15 years. And then his father turned up, whom everyone thought was dead, but in fact had been in prison for armed insurrection against the government, and told Charles that he had to go to college to learn the cunning of the white man. And so Charles did grades 1 through 12 in 2 years. and then got a scholarship to Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire. And which is really cool when you think about it. So, anyway, then he went to Boston University School of Medicine, interned at Boston City Hospital, and became the physician at Wounded Knee. And after Wounded Knee, he decided that assimilation was impossible. And he completely reversed his position and he said, we need to be separate and equal to the rest of the United States. And that cost him his marriage because his wife was a Boston blue blood, and she couldn't tolerate that point of view. And so she divorced him. So, anyway, he wrote 17 books, and all of them now are free downloads on Kindle or Google. And there's just some amazing books. One of them is My Indian Boyhood, and there's quite a few other amazing books. And a lot of people don't know this, but he helped found the Boy Scouts of America. So he's responsible for the Order of the Arrow and the Webelow and all of the native seeming aspects of Boy Scouts was brought in by this guy. So, oops, where did it go? Come on, come back. Here we go. So, and this is Adam Beach portraying Charles Eastman in the HBO movie Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. So, and this will lead us into the meat of the presentation. But this is one of my favorite pieces of art from northern Canada, which is about an excited man forgetting his weapon as he goes bear hunting. So don't forget your weapon when you go bear hunting. So, so we're going to talk about worldview, and let me see if I can. Yeah, we're going to talk about a worldview that places an emphasis on the spiritual realm of ancestors, sacred beings, natural powers, and kinship bonds, and a worldview in which the entire universe is imbued with and intimately related to spirits and spiritual forces that have real power to influence outcomes. And an idea which in Mi'kmaq, if I say it right, it's something like Neptaliptamunk, is this idea of interdependence and interconnectedness, and that humans are not superior, but are equal to all other creatures on the earth. And that, you know, that each person is a living testament as well as a legacy of all of our ancestors and the spirits of creation. So one of my father's tribal elders, Albert Whitehat Sr., who teaches at Sinta College in South Dakota, talks about how the importance of the recognition of our pitifulness or condition of neediness as a creature in the world, dependent on all the forces and powers of creation all around, and an intimate part of the natural world, not separate from it, and that non material or transpersonal reality is the source of power and health. And and um, it is he says that it's spirit helpers who give us the capacity to conduct ceremony and to provide a safe place for the medicine to be healing to people. And sometimes they give us quite specific instructions for people's healings, and that they work through the healer, and that the healer is accountable to the spirits for everything, and they are the power force and source of help for healing. So the healing process begins and ends with spiritual powers and influences, and all aspects of life are intimately connected to good health and well-being, so that medicine and healing are a coming together of all of the elements from all of the dimensions. And so that a person is an unexplainable creation with at least four constituent dimensions. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about um, Lakota philosophy, but I think it's similar to Wabanaki philosophy. And hopefully we'll get someone at some point to talk about the parallels. But so when the four dimensions of the self are aligned, we experience Wichozani, which is harmony and balance. And when they're not, we experience Tawakaupta, which is literally head on its side or imbalance. And so we're talking about the energy that sustains and maintains the physical body, like the energy that anchors the spiritual body into the physical body, and the interconnectedness of everything, which in Lakota is called the Naki. So Naki is all those things that influence us. It's all the stories told about us by all the beings telling them. And so it's similar to what we say with neuroscience, that we are a swarm of stories with a midline cortical narrative circuitry or story brain that puts them together to give us a story about who we are, an identity narrative. And that without this story brain or an medial prefrontal cortex, we disintegrate into a collection of disconnected vignettes. So, so we need this vital breath, this thing that gives life to the body and is responsible for the circulation of the blood and for the breathing process. Let me just get back to that for a minute. Uh, I'm having trouble with my screen here. Okay, so Nia is the word for vital breath, and Onshila is the four dimensions of the self. So so back to Naki. Um, anyway, Naki is all of our memories, all of the things that allow us to relate to other people. And so when the Nagi gets separated from the body, it's called soul loss. And soul retrieval is that process of reconnecting the body with the Nagi, with that swarm of all. Did I get knocked off? Am I
Yeah, it's like it's kind of bad sound or something. It's kind of in and out. Just recently though.
okay? It's because Eric Brown walked in. He just walked out. How is it now? Eric is like a magnet.
Yeah, much better now.
Okay, I'll tell Eric and his magnets to stay out of the room. All right. So, let's see. So we're still seeing everything well and hearing everything well.
We've lost the slides, I think.
We've lost the slides. Okay, let me go back and get them. Uh, okay. Share screen. Okay. All right. Okay. So, always a little technical difficulties sometimes with Zoom, but we're all surviving. So, then we have the Nagila, which is the divine, the part of us that's comes from the spirit world, the part of us that's that spark of divinity that lives in each person, and the something of the sacred that dwells within us. I, I always wondered if that's similar to what the Catholics call the Holy Spirit, but I don't actually know. I need a good Catholic to dialogue with me. Um, so the Nagila is the self, not self part of me, but not part of me, part of who I am. And it's the part of me that remains in me and in the spirit world at the same time. And it's in constant interaction and interrelationship with the Nagi. So it's a kind of reflection, a mirror image of the Nagi. They reflect each other. Um, and then we have the Shikun. And Albert Whitehead said, the way you get to know someone's Shikun is you walk into their house when they're not home. And and that presence that you feel of them in their house when they're not home is their shikun. It's what remains of you when you leave a room. So when you walk out of a room, your shikun stays behind, and it's also the net effect of one's balance of all the dimensions of the self. So and you can tell, you know, a lot about someone by being in a place where they live when they're not there and feeling the energy, feeling the shikun. So, so health then, in this perspective, it's the net result of balance and harmony in all of our relationships. And so it's achieved through cultivating what's called wuwa bleza, or understanding within our relationships, including relationships with the natural world. And so we have what's called o'ope, which is the natural law of creation, which is the same as in Mi'kmaq. The There's a Mi'kmaq word that means the same thing: interconnectedness, interdependency, and humility, the recognition of our lowly status in the universe. And we talked about the lack of harmony, which is tawak chikapta. So so we have let's see if I can get this over there. I have to get better at changing the zoom thing around. So we have these ideas. Wonia is the physical body, and the physical body. One of my favorite elders said the reason we have bodies is to make us easy to find. Because if we didn't have a body, this our nagi, our swarm of stories, and it would just be wandering all over the place, and it would be hard to track down. So we have to have a wonia, a physical body, so it has somewhere to anchor. And then this nia, and you can see that the words are very similar. Um, this nia is this vital breath, this dynamic energy of living, which makes us breathe and makes the blood go round and round. It's like the qi in Chinese medicine, or the elan vital in early European medicine. And then there's this we talked about the shikun. So um, Nagali, and just a little bit of the org chart. I'm working on a better org chart for Matt and Heidi. But so at the top of the org chart are all the sacred beings, and we got a bunch of them. Um, just like everyone, I think. Uh, Indigenous people have a lot of sacred beings, and then the sacred beings can get divided into the Nagitanka, the things that move on their own. And the most powerful of them is Dakushkashka, which is the sky itself. It literally means the whitest white of the blue, that which is the whitest white up above. And then we have beneath beneath Dakushkashka is the sun, which is the Wakan Tonkan Ki, and we is another word for sun. And then the the healers get their power. There's the Wikasha Wakan, who get their power from um, Dakushkashka, and then there's the Pajuta Wakasha, who get their power from the sun. And these are the ones who work. Pajuta would be medicine, like herbs and things like that. And then beneath that are the elders. So just a little bit about our cosmology, and so that's Lakota. And then I wanted to show you how similar um, some of these ideas are across North America. So similar ideas among the Inuit, and so humans are the amalgamation of three types of energies: the name soul, the life breath, souffle vital en français, and the shadow soul. And each type of soul was in the past, um, oops, manipulated by the traditional healers who are called Angakok to cure disease. So, so the Inuit think that the world contains a finite number of souls, which can neither be exhausted nor added to, but are transferred continually between the young, the old, the dead, the newborn, and in special cases, usually associated with healing practitioners between species, and that animals share in their own finite quantity of souls, um, and in this recycling process. So, um, so I should mention that a friend of mine wrote a book called Amerindian Reincarnation, and she teaches at the University of Northern British Columbia in Prince George. And her discovery in researching the book is that pretty much every group, every nation had a belief in reincarnation, but differently from the Asian belief. So no one has a wheel of karma that she could find, and no one thought, no one in North America thought that you keep coming back to get it right so that you don't have to come back again. That in general, coming back is a voluntary choice, that you may come back with a group of people, to keep working on something. That a Lakota elder told Barbara at one of our Sundances that they were spirit beings come to Earth to take on a physical form, and that sometimes we take on more than we should. Sometimes we throw ourselves into a life that's too hard for us. It didn't seem that hard looking at it from the spirit world, but when we get here, it's incredibly difficult. And so we have to have compassion for those souls who throw themselves into incredibly difficult lives, and we have to help them out as best we can because it could be us next time, throwing ourselves into such a difficult life. And so the Inuits thought that disease is just something that exists in the universe, and that it goes from species to species, region to region, and that um, epidemics in one species can coincide with health and abundance in others, um, and that it's just a part of life. So, so they and other indigenous people in North America believe in the invisibles, the invisible world, and among Inuits, these invisibles can intrude in the ordinary world through a kind of possession or in our dreams. And but also that you can have one can have more mundane experiences with the spirits, especially out on the land, where you might feel the presence of a spirit, or both good and bad, or a spirit might speak to you. And I think Teresa from Alaska talked about that yesterday. Talked about talk communing with the little people. And Inuits believe that certain illnesses come from the interaction of between souls and spirits of other dimensions. And a lot of the really interesting work on Inuits comes from Lawrence Kiermaier, who looked at um, three different types of spirit-human interactions, um, and and called there was Utulutak, Nuliarsalik, and Urisalik, and so then Utulutak comes from the word to try, and it means that you're being tried. And an Utulutik is a tempter then. And it's an ever-present force in the world which waits for individual weakness from whatever cause and enters the person's existence, changing their behavior. It's an opportunistic spirit of no determined sex or form which tries the person when he or she is vulnerable. And so the point of this would be for an Inuit would be to work hard at being not vulnerable, at being resilient, at being in harmony and balance so as to not be weak and to be vulnerable to an Utulutik. So, here's an example. There was a woman who was sick and had spent a week in bed, and was barely able to get to the bathroom. And and in her room, she sensed a presence and recognized it as Utulutik and knew that it wanted to prevent her from recovering for her original illness. And so she knew that she needed help from a traditional elder familiar with Utulutics. And then a second type of possession is this Ursalic Nuliarsalic possession, and so it's a formless force or power manifesting itself in human form. So it's a kind of spirit possession, and people who have this kind of possession can have auditory and visual hallucinations, and lives in another dimension. Might even have a mate and children in this other dimension, but carries on um, unusually, has unusual behavior as a result of that in this dimension. According to Kiermaier, this is similar to what Europeans would call psychosis or bipolar disorder. That the Inuit would see it as a kind of cross-dimensional um, living in which one becomes confused with which dimension one is in and does things that would be appropriate in one dimension but in the wrong dimension and vice versa. And then there would be procedures for working with that person to help them get well. And Kiermaier Wright has some really interesting case studies of people who got back into balance and harmony and stopped having these symptoms as a result of their work with the traditional healers. Um, and the belief is that the phenomena has its origin in someone um, clinging or wanting too much something. That whether it's a mate or money or something, wanting something too much, and that wanting taking you out of harmony and balance, and that obsessive wanting, that obsessive desire attracts these disembodied beings who pretend to be what you want and lead you astray, so that what was imaginary becomes real, even though it exists in another dimension. And I don't know, for me, it's a pretty good explanation of psychosis. I kind of like it. Um, and so bizarre behavior then is a direct result of having another life in an invisible realm. And the cure, in a sense, is to get the person out of that realm, um, or at least to help them to be able to negotiate going back and forth between the realms without taking one into the other and vice versa. Um, so, anyway, I wanted to talk about bears. And we heard a lot about bears. We began our Alaska experience on Monday with a video about the Kodiak bears. And bears are powerful both in Maine and in Wabanaki country and all over North America. And bears are powerful energetic forces that are integral to the co-construction of those who travel between universes. And so bears are powerful. And in Lakota, there's an awakening of the bear ceremony, and it's performed at the time when the bears come out of hibernation, and there's a awakening of the bear song that's sung, and and it's a powerful ceremony. Um, there, a person dresses up like a bear, and people come around and uh, try to wake up the bear without the bear catching them. And uh, Eastman described this ceremony in a couple of his books. And if the bear catches you, it can be really bad juju. People can get sick. You don't want to let the bear catch you. Um, but if you've been around where bears live, you know how awe-inspiring and how powerful they are. So, so they say that men imitate the bear, but women become the bear. And in this bear dance, um, they build a den for the bear about 200 meters from the camp. Uh, about let's see, about oops, about 2/3 of a meter deep and 2 meters square with four openings. And so the bear men or women would sing and all the men and boys would gather and dance, and the bear would chase them. And so the goal was to touch the bear without the bear touching you. And you, the worst thing was to trip and fall while being chased by the bear. So, and there were bear societies, and they say bears are wakan. Wakan in Lakota means sacred. So you say, Mato Wichayu Wakampi King. And it means the bear, uh, sacred or ceremonial is, and kin is a indefinite article, which means or an. And there was the Bear Medicine Council, which was the Mato Okolakichia Keltaku Kuwapiki. And and so um, it means the council of the bear, uh, that which could do things to fix people. And so it was, bear medicine was very powerful medicine. And you could become a member of the Bear Society if you'd healed from a very bad wound. And the head of the society would be someone who had a dream of the bear and received the medicine. And the Bear Society had a special teepee or dwelling place, and the whole floor would be covered in sage. And it would be a place, it was battlefield medicine. Anyone who was severely wounded or sick would be brought into the Bear Lodge for to be doctored by the Bear Society. And here's a photo of some bear medicine people from the 1890s. And so it was ferocious medicine, and not one to be taken, nothing to be taken lightly. Bear honoring is global. Um, it was part of the practices in France and Germany, pre-Roman, uh, part of fertility rituals in Germany and England. Um, when when Iktomi is a trickster, tricked the Lakota people to leave Middle Earth, which was comfortable and warm and full of food. It was Bear who gave them medicines and taught them how to survive. Um, there's a Dakota rite of passage, making of a bear. They keep the dream time. Um, and This is kind of a cool picture of bear warriors from medieval times in Europe, so that people would appreciate that. They apparently these guys were so crazy that they made the Roman invaders flee in total panic. Um, so anyway, bear medicine has to do with strength, wisdom, gentleness, truth, nurturing, the gift of herbs, healing broken bones, war wounds, hunting accidents, wounds that don't heal, and cutting inflamed places and places about wounds that are not healing properly. And bear medicine people follow the bear in the spring to see what he or she eats. Um, so there's a lot of powerful things about bear. Um, and in Ojibwe culture, um, when women are on their moon, they say that they're mukhowi, that they're bears, or that they're wimukhowi, they're going to be a bear, because of the power of bears. And, we're getting close to being out of time, but there's so many cool bear stories about people becoming bears and bears becoming people. And anyway, we probably don't have time to go into all those stories, um, but it's powerful. And here is a Lakota book, The Berenstein Bears. Matro wa unshila tiwahe. Uh, it means the family who is in good relationship with each other together. Um, and here's Awakening the Bear, the medicine bundle of the bear. And um, and I know that there are bundles in Wabanaki country, um, and bundles in Lakota country have their purpose is to contain objects that will call spirits that are connected to those objects to come when the bundle is invoked or opened to do work for the on behalf of the people. And so the things that you put into bundles are the things that will draw spirits related to those objects to come and help you. It could be an ancestor's hair, and I would guess that it's the same idea at work in the parkas and the hats we saw that included people's hair, from Alaska. So you might put nail clippings from an ancestor, skins from an animal, um, piece of buffalo bone, or whatever would draw the beings that you need to come help you. And the contents of these bundles, whether they be bear bundles, individual healers medicine bundles, or women's bundles, the contents are considered holy by the community or sacred wakan, and they're only opened in special circumstances and in ceremony. And the contents are not meant to touch the ground. Um, so I just wanted to show quickly some pictures of our Anipi ceremony. Um, and this happens all over Wabanaki country. Max and Heidi were at one on Friday. Um, and just for orientation, here's a 19th century picture. It's pretty much looks the same. A painting from Alberta of women covering a lodge in the 19th century. Um, tarps tarps work when you can't get buffalo skins. And a nice picture of the fire pit and the altar and the lodge. Nice picture of the where the stones go. Just wanted to mention Bear Butte, where people it's a place of vision questing, Humbolechia, um, and just some just some images now as we draw close to the end of regalia of the Sundance, of some of the sacred ceremonies of my father's people. And um, we will call it a day. So I will stop sharing my screen. And I thank you for letting me share a little bit of my culture and things that interest me, like how Inuits treat psychosis, and um, my fascination with bears. Go black bears!
Thank you. That was very good. I enjoyed that.
Cool, thank you. Any thoughts or observations of similarities with Wabanaki culture or other thing, other
I believe
whatever's.
I've seen women turn into bear many a time.
I think you're right. And as one Lakota war chief said, the men fight best when the women lead them into battle.
You-
So, any other thoughts or comments?
It's interesting how a lot of the healing things interconnect with Reiki, which I do, and I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, I think all around the world, people do energy medicine or energy psychology.
Hmm.
People work with energy all over the world. And one of the cool things about Maine is that there are a lot of osteopaths, and a lot of them actually believe this. And so you can talk energy with them, and they don't think you're crazy. Like
Yeah,
here at the residency, there's Tasha Hoffman and Emily Redding and Keelan Eisenhower, and they're all like into energy and energy
yep,
healing.
yep,
And I just feel like, there's people I can talk to about this crazy stuff. But yeah, and I think so much of traditional healing is energy medicine. You know, of drumming. Well, it's spirit healing, but it's also energy medicine of bringing in energy. I mean, what are spirits but energies? I mean, invisible energy, and drumming and rattling and singing. It all brings it in, and it's kind of like Reiki, where the energy works through us, but we don't.
yeah,
We don't. We're not the workers. We're just the
right.
conduits. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Similar ideas all around the world.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's
Okay.
probably
Well, thank you.
time. Yeah, thank you for letting me,
Yeah.
um, present a little bit about, where I come from and the Lakota worldview. And, you know, it's fun.
Yeah.
Fun to share.
Mhm.
Yeah.